Good evening YouTube, welcome back to the channel. This is IMAX Sports with another football video, and today I'm going over my Week 13 NFL Power Rankings. Sorry if I'm a little mellow tonight, but I've had a very long day, and a very long past couple of months. So, yeah, I was at the Patriots game this week. It was a very exciting game. We beat the Titans 36-13. I enjoyed that game a lot, and I got pretty decent ticket prices for it, so wasn't bad. But I am since exhausted after almost 6 hours of driving, probably, at some point, between going to Foxborough and back home and then back to college. So, yeah. A lot of fancy stuff happening today. But I will try and keep this Power Rankings video as good as possible. I still wanted to make sure to get a good content for you guys, so I apologize for the tiredness. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure to subscribe. Only 11% of people who watch my content are actually subscribed, so if you enjoy it, make sure to hit that subscribe button. With that, let's get right into it. First off, as always, we have the dumpster fire. The dumpster fire always kicks off the Power Rankings. And this week is the same as usual. We have the Lions, the Texans, the Jaguars, and the Jets. The Jets have moved to the top of the dumpster fire this week for beating the Texans. The Lions continue their losing streak, and the Jaguars continue their losing streak. So the Lions still have 0 wins. The Jaguars continue their 3-game losing streak, and the Jets beat the Texans. So since they beat another dumpster fire team, they got elevated to the top for this week. The bad category, we saw a small change. 28 is the Bears, 29 is the Seahawks, and 28 is the Bears, 27 is the Seahawks, and 26 is the Panthers. Last week, Washington was number 26. This week, the Panthers are 26. Washington got elevated by default. Sorry. The Falcons. Sorry, the Falcons were 26 last week. Washington was not 26. The Falcons were 26 last week. So the Panthers dropped to 26 after losing this week, and it was a pretty bad loss. Cam Newton had 2 interceptions and only 5 completions. The Panthers are not looking like the team that a lot of people thought that they would with Cam. I personally thought that Cam would do well for this team. I thought that he was going to help them to try and potentially make a playoff push, but he just hasn't had the stuff. He didn't really have the stuff last year with the Patriots, and it showed. But this year, he really didn't, it really didn't come together for him. So it's too bad. I really thought it would. But yeah, the Panthers are not looking good right now. At 25, we have the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons won this week. It was their first win in a couple of weeks. It was their first points in a couple of weeks. They got shut out by New England last week, and then the week before, they only scored 3 against Dallas. So it was refreshing for them to go and get some points this week. To be fair, they were playing Jacksonville, but it was a good reset week for them. They were able to reset themselves, get a win, and maybe they'll be able to continue this momentum next week. I really don't think so, because their offense hasn't been working well against good defenses recently, but who knows. At 24, we have the Giants. The Giants have been very up and down this season. They've had some good games, some bad games. They've had some pretty solid wins, but overall it's been a bad season for them. I have them at 24 because I think that they've had a couple more impressive games in Atlanta, and overall they've been playing better recently. They beat the Eagles this week. They played really bad. They played terrible last week at Tampa. Let's just get that out of the way. They played terribly last week at Tampa, but the Falcons got outscored 68-3 the past 2 weeks before this week, so yeah. And then this week, the reason why they're higher than the Falcons this week is simply because they had a better win. They beat the Eagles, the Falcons beat the Jaguars. The Eagles were an up-and-coming team that was rising in the rankings, and then the Giants squashed that, winning 13-7. In what a lot of people thought would be a fairly high-scoring game between divisional rivals. So that was a really interesting game. The Giants came up with a good win there. Not enough to move them up a whole lot, but they're sitting solid at 24. 23, we have the Saints. The Saints have just been on a steady decline ever since Trevor Siemian took over. Obviously, not everything can be blamed on him, but the team clearly isn't functioning ever since Jameis Winston left. They were 5-2 with Jameis. They are 0-3 with Trevor. 0-4 with Trevor Siemian. So the Saints are sitting at 23 because until they can get a new quarterback, I can't put them really any higher than that. They've been playing terrible, like really bad. And they've had a decently tough schedule in these 4 games, but they also have had a couple of really bad losses. So, yeah, they need a new quarterback before I can put them any higher than 23 for now. And they are currently out of the NFC playoff picture, which was something that a lot of people didn't think was going to be possible at some point in the season. Outside contenders, we have Washington, the Dolphins, the Eagles, and the Steelers. None of these teams I expected to be here this week, honestly. Washington's here because enough teams did bad enough for them to be elevated to this spot. The Dolphins are on a 4-game winning streak, so that's new. The Eagles lost to the Giants. Shocker, after they had a few wins in a row. A lot of people, I personally thought that they were doing really well. I thought they were going to continue their win streak and they were going to do well, maybe not win their division, but maybe make the playoffs. And then the Steelers, I have tried to put the Steelers at a decent spot because they really have looked good some weeks this season. But they're currently 5-1 now. And I really don't see them coming back from this week's loss. I really don't. They got pummeled by the Bengals. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, call the ambulance. It was a disaster. If they had kept it competitive in this game, then I would have said, hey, maybe there's a chance. But they're just out now. I don't see any universe where the Steelers make the playoffs this season. And for good reason, because they really haven't been anything spectacular. They won a couple of solid games in the middle of the season, but they started off with a bad losing streak, and now they're ending with a bad losing streak. And at 5-1, I don't even know if they're going to continue their 17-18 season record of having a 500 record or better. They have a really tough schedule to end off the season, and I think that they'll be lucky to finish 8-1 at this point. AFC West, I guess, is the next category. We have the Browns, the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Chargers. Basically the AFC West and then the Browns. The Browns lost this week to the Ravens after picking off Lamar Jackson 4 times. I mean, they looked good at the beginning of the season. A lot of AFC teams looked really good at the beginning of the season. But they're, again, one of those teams that, like, I never fully believed in them. A lot of people told me to fully believe in them, but I never really did. I never really had them any higher than 12 in my power rankings, even though sometimes they probably should have been. And they really just haven't impressed me a great deal at any point this season. And then the past few weeks really haven't helped that. Especially this week, because this was just really, like, they got 4 interceptions on Lamar Jackson. They completely destroyed the turnover battle, and you still lose. Like, I just don't know what else the Browns need right now. They've it's just not been a great second half of the season for them. They're not on a good pace right now to make the playoffs. I don't see it happening. And at 6-6, they're having a lot of issues. The Broncos, surprise, are at 17. I didn't think that they would be this high. I was shocked that they beat the Chargers, never mind that it wasn't even a close game. The Broncos are weird. The Broncos are a really weird team. They win against the like, they'll beat the Chargers by a lot, and they'll beat the Cowboys by a lot, and then they'll lose to mediocre or bad teams. And nothing is a surprise for me anymore with the Broncos. They could make the playoffs, and I would not be shocked. Or they could lose the rest of the games of the season, and I really wouldn't be shocked. They're the definition of a mediocre team right now, and I think that 17 is a pretty solid spot for them. I think that they could be a little bit higher or a little bit lower. I think there's definitely arguments for each, but I think that 17 and 16 for the Raiders also is pretty good. I have the Raiders at 16. I had them a little lower last week. If they had lost this week, they probably would have stayed in the same place as last week. I think I had them around 19 or 20, but they moved back up to 16, back into the hunt a little bit because of their win over the Cowboys. I really expected them to lose this game, especially after losing 19-9 to Kansas City. And after Dallas lost 19-9 to Kansas City, I thought that Dallas would have come back and tried to fight a little bit more. They didn't. They were missing their two biggest offensive weapons once again, Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. But even still, it's an impressive win. Dak Prescott still had a good game. Ezekiel Elliott still had a good game. Their offense still worked well. And the Raiders played better. They came out with a 36-33 win. Dak and Derek were pretty much pass for most of the game. It was a really good Thanksgiving game. Nothing else really to be said there. And the Raiders really haven't had a lot of good games recently. They lost a lot in a row, and there were a lot of really bad losses. So it was refreshing to see them play a good game because they really were a good football team at the beginning of the season. And 15, we have the Chargers. The Chargers, I think, have the most potential of these four teams. We just didn't see it this week. The Chargers have been very up and down this season, and they have been more down recently. I think that they've won 2 of their last 6 games. And they really just haven't been a whole lot of impressive recently. There's not really a whole lot to be said. They lost to the Vikings, they lost to the Patriots, they lost to another pretty decent team, and now this week they lost to the Broncos. And the only wins that separated those 4 losses were a couple wins. I don't even think they were in a row, but they barely beat the Eagles, and then there was another one in there. But they really haven't. They've been 2-4 in the last 6 games, and it's showed. They haven't been as good of a team, but I think that they do have potential to be really good. I think that if they make the playoffs, they're a threat, and I think that Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback and can lead them to do something really impressive. I don't even know what this category is. This is just my brain spewing thoughts at this point. The Ravens are at 11. I know they won this week, but it was not a good win. I wouldn't count this as a very impressive win by the Ravens. So I think that they moved up 1 spot from last week, but that's about it. I have the 49ers at 12, which is a shocker to me. I really thought that they were dead when they were 3-5. I would never, ever, ever have told you that they were going to be 5-5. The Vikings would also be 5-5, and that they would beat the Vikings after the Vikings beat the Packers and the Chargers. So the 49ers are rising. They're looking like a playoff team right now. I don't want to jinx you guys because I jinxed the Vikings last week. I put a lot of faith in the Vikings. Probably a really stupid idea. After just one fantastic week against the Packers, I was just sold on the Vikings last week. I was like, Vikings are going to the NFC Super Bowl. Like, I was sold. But yeah, no. And then the Rams have officially lost 3 in a row. I was expecting it to happen. I didn't think that they would beat the Packers. So I only dropped them 1 spot from last week. I think they were at 12 last week. They might have even been at 13 or I think they might have been at 11. I think they were 11, the Ravens were 12. So they dropped 2 spots from last week. I think that that's fair for a loss to Green Bay. I mean, I really was hoping that they could have won to kind of right their season again. But their season just has not been going well recently. They had 2 losses in a row to mediocre or bad teams, San Francisco being one of them. San Francisco was one of those teams that I was thought, they beat the Rams, how? And then the other team was Washington. So yeah, the Rams the last few weeks have been a little rough, but San Francisco is rising in the rankings. The Vikings, have also been playing very strong football, but I put them, I think, at 8 or something last week. I have no idea why I did that. I thought it would be a hot take. People really didn't think so. People were like, yeah, no, you're stupid. And I was. So I'll admit that I was really stupid. I think 14 is probably pretty solid for them. I think that they're playing better football than any of these teams right now. And I think that that's pretty fair to say, considering how those teams are playing currently. They lost this week to the 49ers. It was a close game, but the 49ers are playing really strong football. They beat the Rams 31-10. So, yeah. I really am hoping that the Ravens can turn something around because they're an exciting team, but I just can't give them any... Like, I'm trying so hard to give them something, but they're not giving me anything at all to work with. Playoff caliber teams, we have the Colts, the Bengals, and the Bills. I have the Colts at 10, the Bengals at 9, and the Bills at 8. The Bengals are one of those teams that are up and down. This category is the definition of being up and down with more ups than downs. The Bengals and Bills are currently 7-4. The Colts are 6-5. 6-6. Sorry. But the Bengals and Bills, they've had more ups this season than downs. Their ups have been at really crucial points, and the Bills' downs have kind of been at pretty crucial points too. The Bengals have had some really impressive wins over divisional rivals in big games. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I have them so high right now. They won a really big game against the Steelers this week. Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger don't usually give up those big wins in important games like that. So it was really important that the Bengals won this week, and I think that it was super impressive. So I have the Bengals at 9 this week. That might be a little bit high, but I really don't think so. I think that they're playing some of the best football in the AFC right now. They might even be the best team in their division. So if they could potentially beat the Ravens for the division, and that would be quite an interesting turn of events. I have the Bills at 8. This is by default because other teams have dropped. I should have I kind of want to put the Bengals at 8 and the Bills at 9 because the Bengals are playing better football right now. The Bills won this week against the Saints, but the Saints are kind of dropping. The Bills have been shaky the past few weeks. They lost to Jacksonville. They barely beat Miami. They lost last week. And the only thing that split up their losses was a weird win to the Jets. A good win to the Jets, but it's the Jets, so it's weird. So yeah, the Bills have not looked like the Bills recently, but they're still definitely a threat. Josh Allen is still a very impressive quarterback. And the Colts are just kind of like coasting at 10. Some part of me wanted to put the 49ers at 10, but I really didn't want to put another NFC wildcard team in the top 10 and have people be like, what the heck are you doing? And then them being completely right. So I kept the Colts up there. It was a really close game against Tampa. They played an impressive game against a tough team. I'll give them that. And so I think that keeping them at 10 for now is okay until we see how they finish off their season. 6 and 7, we have the Titans and Cowboys, and this is just kind of just like they're injured. That's really I really had no idea where to put these teams. I'm sorry. I almost put them at 9 and 10, and bumped everyone else up. I almost put them lower. I just didn't know what to do because they're really strong teams that have been riddled with injuries. Like the Patriots won 36-13, but if you're playing against the 5th string running back and they still put up 270 yards on you, that's impressive. They didn't have any of their starting wide receivers, and they had their 5th string running back. Not a single offensive player was a starter except for Ryan Tannehill. And they didn't score any points in the second half, but they were competitive. They kept it close. They kept it exciting. It was a good game. It was a really good 36-13 game. And the Cowboys, the Raiders are potentially a playoff team, and I know that the Cowboys are supposed to beat them. But if you're missing your two top offensive weapons, then that's a hard game to win. So they're still not bad. These two teams, they're injured, but they're still not bad. And so I just can't really bring myself to put them much lower than this, especially the way Buffalo has been playing, how the Colts just lost this week. I mean, I might put the Bengals at 6, honestly. But, other than that, I think that if these two teams got healthy, then they would definitely be higher than... I think that 6 and 7 is probably where they would be if they were healthy. As strong contenders, we have Tampa, the Patriots, and the Chiefs. I moved up the Tampa from last year. I think from last week. I think they were at 9 last week. I moved them up. 9 was definitely way too low. I don't know why I bumped them down so low, but they got a really strong win against the Colts this week. They had a few bad losses in a row, but they're winning against the Giants, and then this week they're winning against the Colts right at their season. They're playing really strong football. They're looking like last year's Tampa, and that's one of the reasons why they're back in the top 5. I have the Patriots at 4 because they currently have the longest win streak in the NFL. We beat Tennessee, who was the AFC number 1 seed. We are now the number 2 seed behind the Ravens. And we've outscored our opponents 211 to 68, or 63 in our last 6 games. It's been an impressive stretch. We've beaten good teams like the Browns, the Chargers. We beat the Panthers. They're not really that great, but we still beat them. We beat the Falcons. We beat the Jets. And we capped it all off with beating the Titans. I think next week against the Bills is going to be a telling game, but it's also away against Buffalo. We played 2 games against them. So if we lose that game, it's not really the end of the world. We'll probably drop in the power rankings because I personally won't want to keep us in the top 5 if we lose that game. But we're looking like a strong team right now. I'm happy with where we are. At 3, we have Kansas City. Kansas City's been very impressive recently. They started off weak, like the Patriots, and the past 2 weeks they've looked more and more like themselves. So I think 3 is a good spot for them. That's where I had them last week. They're looking like Kansas City. They're looking strong. They're winning their division, and yeah. And then at 1 and 2, we have the NFL's elite. I have the Arizona Cardinals at 1 and the Green Bay Packers at 2. I don't think anyone can argue this. I think that this is just a known fact that the Cardinals are number 1 and the Packers are number 2. If anyone disagrees, at me. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I need to get some sleep, so I'm just going to end this video here. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.